Hello and welcome to another episode of Staying Power, a show that is all about building a better life. And whatever way you think that means, we probably mean that in some way, shape, or form. And every week we come together to talk for an hour about just one way we can build a better life. And we hope that it resonates with you as well. By we, I mean myself, JDK Winnikin, and I need just a small introduction. My co-host needs a big introduction. Actually, I'm going to keep it small this time.
Really?
Ashley Kniebel. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Oh, nice, short to the point. I'm good, thank you.
I kind of ran out of adjectives all of a sudden. I don't know.
You're at a loss for words?
A loss for words,
Aww.
yes. Do you have that effect on people wherever you go?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. I believe this. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. But tonight we're going to be talking about, I'm glad we're laughing. We're showing some, we have kind of a happy vibe on this show, don't you think, Ashley?
Oh, just a bit.
Just a bit. Okay. Well, today we're going to be talking, though, about how happy people have bad days too. And it's about a little bit more than that, but that's kind of an interesting way to frame it. But so Ashley, do you consider yourself to be largely a happy person?
Yes. I would say positive, probably more than happy.
Positive. That's probably a better word,
Sure.
right? Positive people have negative days too, maybe,
well,
or negative feelings, but you're a positive person.
I'm naturally, I fall to the positive, happy-go-lucky
Okay.
side of things. Yes.
Okay. What does that look like? When you say you're a positive person, what does that look like?
I wake up every morning, usually in like a let's tackle the day type of attitude. If, bad things happen to me or like rough days happen to me, but it doesn't last or linger. Usually I end up working through it pretty quickly. And then I'm like on to the next like great thing, or I end up naturally finding a positive thing in the circumstance or whatnot. And I have just observed that of myself, that I tend to naturally find the happier things and I focus on the happier things.
Okay. Okay. I am probably not that way.
Oh, are you like a little gray cloud?
Well, no, I'm not.
Good.
Historically, I wouldn't call myself, I don't wake up in the morning thinking, let's tackle the day. I don't. I still don't. I would refer to myself more as a grateful person. But that's been learned and cultivated and developed over time. So I do wake up every day feeling grateful in the sense that I got another day, I have opportunities to do things, that type of thing. But I think historically I was a lot more, I guess maybe a little, what'd you call me? A little black rain cloud?
A gray cloud.
Gray cloud. And in younger years, I certainly was.
Really?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's been more. But I do believe that we do get to choose more of how we view life. And that can be just as real if it's a positive outlook as it can be if it's a more of a negative outlook or a pessimistic outlook. We use a lot of adjectives interchangeably. We'll just work our way through that here. But Ashley, this was something that you wanted us to talk about tonight, which is interesting because you're the self-described positive outlook, but you wanted to talk about this subject. Can you tell everybody why that is?
Well, yes. It came to mind because people see me as a positive, happy person. And I have people tell me that often, that you're always in a good mood. You're always so like up and bright and happy and warm, friendly. And that is the side of me that they always see. And so they have this belief or assumption that that is how I always am. And that it just must come naturally to her. And, I'm so far away from what they are because of that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because they aren't coming across as this happy person.
Yeah.
Always in a good mood.
And so they're like, well, I probably could never be as happy as she is. Like I've had people tell me that, which I'm like, okay, so does that mean I'm not being like as genuine sometimes I could be, or
like
maybe
putting up a front?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Of course, if it's in a professional sense, I'm like, well, kind of have to keep those boxes pretty clear and aligned.
Yeah, you kind of do have to put something out there, kind of compartmentalized a little bit.
But I mean, why it came to mind as something to talk about is that, yes, I am naturally happy and I feel like good about life and whatnot. And I have a lot of good things happening, so that helps. But no matter what my life circumstances, I generally still find goodness. But I do have days where I struggle. There are days where I feel like I can fully embrace the suck that other people talk about. And I'm like, I have those days too. And they might be darker than people think that they would be. Because some people, I've heard them also say like, oh yeah, I'm sure you have bad days, but your bad days probably in comparison to others is probably just not that bad. And I'm like,
Yeah,
first of all,
no.
we can't really compare
No.
because each circumstance for one individual is their own unique experience.
Correct.
However, I'm like, I have had dark, depressant days where I didn't want to like leave the house. I didn't want to get out of bed. You know, I thought I woke up and I'm like, there's no point to this day. I want to go back to bed. I've had those.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Is this your declaration of humanness? Is that what's happening
yeah,
here?
I'm finally letting everyone know I'm real and I am human.
Not a happy cyborg.
I know this was always like questionable because it's me.
No, it's not.
But you know that there's nothing wrong with you, and it doesn't mean you're any less unique and special and amazing if you do have those rough days, or even if you have more of them and less of the happy days, or if that's not your default.
Yeah. That there is a myth there, isn't there? That happiness is somehow means you're immune from struggle, or immune from questions, or somehow more inoculated to handle difficult situations and difficult moments more so than somebody else. What's interesting about what you just shared about how other people are talking to you about this is how many assumptions get thrown into that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, how many assumptions get thrown into that. Have you ever had the experience, though, of being seen that way in such a way that it felt like it disconnected you from being able to share that part of you with other people? Yeah.
Yes, I have felt that. I'm like, well, should I really share that with them, some of the things that are going on? And not for the intention to be like, well, I'm going to prove to you that I have rough days. But sometimes be like, no, I'm human. Like, I'm struggling and I'm okay to admit that I'm struggling. But sometimes it almost makes it difficult to do so.
Yeah.
So I'm like, am I going to just totally shatter their mind that?
Right. Or, is it something they're not going to know how to respond to? Right. Because then for you to go to that space is an act of vulnerability, which if you think somebody doesn't think you have anything to be vulnerable about, how well are they going to, how well are they going to hold it when they hear it? I get that. So you wanted to bring that up because you just thought it was time to make that clear? Or was it because...
this wasn't like a personal declaration.
It was just something you noticed.
It was just something that came to mind that I hear people, and I know some people that are very near and dear to me that struggle. They have a lot of rough days. They're not by default an up type of person, like they kind of have a little gray, rainy cloud hovering around nearby pretty often. And that they sometimes look at me and they're like, it's just almost like it's not fair. And I don't know what to do with that sometimes.
Sounds like it might be hard sometimes.
It can be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want people to know that like that's sometimes we all struggle with things.
Yeah. Is it because, not to project this onto you, so tell me if I'm wrong, but is it because if someone says that to you, it's not, or is pretending like it's not fair, that would almost seem like push you away from them. Like, or they might not reach out to you for help. It feels
a little odd. It's almost, I feel like it would be the same as telling somebody like, well, you're really pretty, so life must be easy for you. Or you have a lot of money, so you must never have any struggles. It's like one of those, like you're a really happy person, so life must just be so easy for you and everything just comes together. And I'm like here to break that myth.
Right.
That's not always the case.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's an important topic because actually there are studies on this that show that people who believe that, either they are one of those happy people and believe they're supposed to be happy all the time, or people who are looking at somebody else assuming that they're happy all the time, it actually can be really harmful to both sides.
Yeah.
In all of that. And I can sense from just how you're talking about this that there's a frustration, there can be a frustration with that and kind of that disconnect a little bit more. I will say for our listeners, I've known this about Ashley for a really long time, that she does have bad days. And she does. And we've both, one of the things I appreciate about our friendship is we've both seen each other in some pretty raw, difficult situations, difficult, in difficult emotional states. Right. And I always appreciate how neither one of us tries to fix the other person, in all of that, or fix the situation. And it's probably a future topic, actually.
Fixing people or not.
Fixing people or not. Right. But I do think this is worth looking at because I think it also works from the opposite side, that just because somebody might not have the default happiness, quote unquote, setting that you're talking about, that doesn't mean they're always having bad days or that they always have to have bad days. I'm probably more from that side of the ledger where I can feel like just because there are things like I remember growing up and even into my 20s and 30s, I was doing really serious things, studying very serious times in history, right? I mean, I became a scholar of the Holocaust and Nazi Germany. I mean, I studied like
You
the
put that
worst.
on your dating profile?
No, but it inevitably came up. Huh.
Oh.
Might explain why. Explain a few things. Anyway, that's another topic for another day.
Write that down.
No, right. But I do think that I remember feeling that, look, just because, I wrestle with these things, or I care about these things deeply, or I can have moments of melancholy or days where I'm just dragging or grinding, doesn't mean I don't find happiness in things either, or that I can't find the positive, or can't see the positive, or I'm not seeking the positive. And I think that's where, when we start talking about happy versus not happy, or pessimistic versus optimistic, there are a lot of trapdoors in there with language and assumptions that can kind of put us in a hole, right? Because happiness is really defined in psychological studies as two parts. There's for lack of a better term, there's the hedonic or not hedonism, but the hedonic, the feeling, the pleasure-based mode, and then the meaning side, right? The meaning side. And happiness can you find meaning in things. It isn't always going to be the emotional happy.
Yeah.
That's why when I think about myself, I don't necessarily think about myself as a happy person, but am I a grateful person? Do I have meaning in my life? Do I celebrate that? Yes, I do. And I think you do as well. I think you find meaning in things. It's not just about you being happy.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
I mean,
right?
I think to me, happy always feels like that good, fuzzy, warm feeling. And being joyful is when you can recognize good things, even in moments where you don't feel that warm, fuzzy feeling. You can be having a difficult time and still recognize the goodness in something. And it doesn't mean it has any less value if it doesn't make you all warm and fuzzy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a key part of, what you're trying to get across here. And now here's the good news. Good news for you. There's always good news for you. And there's good news for everybody, right? But in this case, a lot of studies show that people who have kind of that higher feeling of well-being, meaning and pleasure, that part together, have those, that they have actually as many difficult emotions as other people do. The difference becomes is over time they bounce back from them more effectively, more quickly, more thoroughly, if you can develop that. So if you're like Ashley and you've just sort of always felt that that's sort of your default position, great, you're in good shape, but you want to have meaning as well as that fuzzy feeling. If you're more wired like me, the good news is you can develop more of that resilience. That's really what we're talking about here, right, with that. Because otherwise, if we're going to embrace the whole good vibes only idea, that gets toxic pretty quick.
I hate that line.
Do you? Good
I
vibes
do.
only?
Are you surprised?
I'm not. You are not a big fan of just real
Bumper stickers? No.
Yeah, bumper sticker philosophy. You and I are similar that way. Yeah, I don't like those things. But yeah, that's toxic positivity, right? Trying to find the positive in everything when sometimes things just suck, right? When sometimes things are difficult. When sometimes you just wake up and you're not feeling it, right? Emotional states happen for reasons that we can't always intellectually explain or understand. They're just as much a part of our chemical makeup, and perhaps even more so, than of our intellectual makeup or whatever stories we happen to be telling ourselves. It's why things like sleep and food and things like that can affect our mood, right? Depending on what they are, right? All those things. So you're trying to point out that you're not trying to avoid the storms of life, or you're not just zippity-doo-dying your way through the storms of life.
Ain't no Mary Poppins over here, okay?
Right. The thing is, though, is that the problem is if we think that somehow we're supposed to be happier more than we are, quote unquote, or if we aren't happy all the time, there's something wrong with us. And that can have really direct negative impacts on our life in very real ways, right? So for me, I remember thinking when I was younger, when I was in romantic relationships, if I didn't feel good and warm and fuzzy all the time, it meant something was wrong.
That was a quick one.
I genuinely believe that as soon as there were doubts, as soon as there was a problem, as soon as there was difficulties, as soon as I wasn't feeling 100% head over heels for the person that I was spending time with, that meant there was a problem.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And so unbeknownst to all those Poor unfortunate souls. No, not really. But unbeknownst to them, things were doomed before they got started. I know.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Everybody enjoy this. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, you're getting a chance to see how much Ashley laughs at me during a session. But anyway.
I'm good. Carry on.
No, it's okay. But I used to believe this.
Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly what we're talking about. Now, I'm going to give myself some slack. I was a teenager, right? I was a kid, right? And I didn't have the best development that way in terms of my emotional intelligence and that kind of thing and what to expect and how things were supposed to go. I didn't start to develop that until later in life. But that just use that as an example, besides making you laugh, Ashley, as an example, what can happen when we think that positivity all the time is supposed to be what we're shooting for, or is a sign that somehow by itself, we are okay all the time. Because it's not the case, right? Okay.
It's very true.
All right. So this is really interesting. I can't wait to dig into this.
Oh, you're welcome.
A little bit more. All right. All right. So let's go and take our first break here on Staying Power. And when we come back, we'll dig into this a little bit more. And we'll also have our weekly segment where Ashley and I will each take 2 minutes to talk about either a terror or a triumph that we had over the past week and what we learned from it. What is it this week, Ashley?
It's a terror.
It's a terror. All right. All right. So we'll be right back here on Staying Power. Stick around.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Bored with the other stations, hammering away on the same old talking points? Try Alternative Talk 1150 and get some variety.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about how happy people have bad days too. Kind of that relationship between what do we mean by positivity and having challenges and working with difficult emotions. And it's really at the core of resilience, which is really what this show is about. We build a better life by building resilience to navigate what life throws at us. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But first, as promised before the break, it is time for our weekly segment. Ashley and I are each going to take 2 minutes to talk about a terror that happened to us over the past week, what we learned from it, all in the name of sharing ourselves, being vulnerable, and just seeing what we have in common on that. Here we go. 2 minutes of terror. All right. Ashley, as always, you are first.
Oh, thank you. Okay, well, this one, funny, we talked a few episodes ago about like the use of AI tools and all that good stuff and how it can be good and it could be not good. And I think I'm starting on occasion to bear witness of the not good side of it.
Uh-oh.
I've had a couple instances the last week or two where I have bore witness to the fact that someone who is normally very capable of handling a task of like writing up something could not do the task very well. And I think it's because they are so used to using like AI tools and whatnot to write it for them that in this instance, they were not able to do so. And it was just really fascinating and kind of scary.
Oh boy.
To witness that. And I don't know for sure if that's like the reason, but it just piqued a thought there that I was like, oof, is this where we're going? Are we forgetting how to just grammatical situations
and critically think
and like word usage and like how to sentence structure things together? It was really interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more of a shortcut for that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's a real challenge. So how did you handle that? Did you have to do a lot of corrections on this thing?
There was some corrections, and it brought some things to light, and I was like, great, this is a really good training opportunity. So there's me finding the positive.
There you go.
Gotcha.
There you go. See, you're bouncing back.
And I didn't
It's
even
resilient.
intend to. That's just where it went. So I'm
Mind
like, okay.
blown. Yeah, that's very good. Okay, well, I'm not sure mine matches up to yours quite a bit, but I went through one of the worst moments of sports terror in my entire life this past week.
What?
Yes. My favorite sports team, Seattle Mariners, played one of the most insane baseball games I've ever seen in my life not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And it went 15 innings. Regular game is 9 innings, tied. Whoever won the game moved on in the playoffs. Whoever lost, the season was over. It was high tension, high stress, not a situation that I have dealt with effectively in the past. Okay, I used to really over-identify with my sports teams.
We've talked about
this
a couple weeks ago.
Right, exactly. So this was a moment where I realized in the middle of it, okay, this is a nice test of this. But
how'd you do?
Much better than I used to do, which is what matters. But it was tough.
You know what?
It was tough.
Wait a minute.
What?
Because the last time we talked about this, you said you ended up getting like pneumonia or something.
I did.
And aren't you... You told me recently you weren't feeling well.
Oh, no, that was happening before that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I was sure. Okay, so no. But hey, even if that were the case, I don't have pneumonia. So if I've gone from pneumonia to a mild cold.
Oh, you're improving.
I'm improving.
Look at you.
But man, sports terror is rough because if you really are wedded to a team and you really follow them and you're really passionate about that and you follow them closely like I follow this team, those moments feel big. And you can tell yourself in your mind that they aren't as big as you're making them out to be in the moment, and they aren't in the big scheme of things, right? But in that moment for that thing, wow, it's rough. But I did navigate it more effectively, but it did catch me by surprise by how intense it was this time around.
Really interesting observation.
Which part?
That'd be worth diving into some other episode maybe. Just how you can choose to put so much emphasis or validation or like importance on something, because for you, sports is like everything.
Sports,
and to
music,
me, I'm like, could care less.
I know.
Doesn't have any effect on my day, my emotional state, nothing at all whatsoever.
Moments like that the other night, I envied you. Let's put that way.
But I find that so funny.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
And it's what you choose to put it on.
Exactly.
Anyways.
And yeah, so it is something that, and I have a lot of thoughts about that.
Okay, well, this will be another episode.
Yes, it'll be another. All right. So with that in mind, thank you, Ashley. That was
you know what?
good.
I come up with all these great things.
You do come up with these great things, right? Exactly. All right. Getting back to great things, let's talk about Ashley's great emotional balance when it comes to. Well, we were talking about before the break about the assumption, of course, that because you're openly positive and come across that way, this assumption that people think you're that way all the time, and how disconnecting that can feel, because then people aren't really seeing you. You wonder if they can actually handle what, the things about you that might not always be positive. And it can encourage us to put a shield up or put up people expect happy, I'll just be happy. Mm-hmm. But that expectation that somehow we're supposed to be happier more often than we're sad or things like that is itself a toxic problem. People have to learn how to let bad days breathe without losing their sense of self, without either cascading into going off the deep end with that, or pretending that it's not there and just wrapping it in toxic positivity, right? So we have to learn how to let bad days breathe. And what we're really talking about is emotional agility, right? So just as a way to frame this, Ashley, I know every day is different, right? But when you're in a positive space and then something happens to challenge that, how rapidly does that challenge that positivity? I realize it might be dependent on what it is, but just in the day in, day out flow, how would you kind of describe that the encounter, the battle, the process to let all that flow, to let it breathe? How would you describe it? Does it happen a lot? Do you have a lot of things that happen during the day?
Not during the day. I think if you look over a grander scheme of time, perhaps there's seasons, where things can be more difficult, and it just seems like you don't quite know when it's going to be over. And so you're just kind of in the trenches getting through it. So it's not necessarily a daily thing, but they certainly come up. And like you said, depending on the gravity of it, sometimes they just come and go and it's quick, like a few minutes and it's gone. And then I'm like, oh, great. And then there's other ones where it can take like a few days. And oddly, at least for me, there's times in those where it feels so odd and out of place because it's so not in the normal alignment of how I usually am, that in those moments I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like what do other people do when they have things like this, you know?
So if it stretches beyond a certain point in time, it can start to concern you.
Yeah.
And you're not sure what
just
to do.
because it's not a territory I'm normally in. So all of a sudden it feels really unfamiliar and really vague and odd. And I'm like, okay, all my normal things that I do to like kind of shake things up and I feel better are not working. And I also have no desire to do any of these things anyways. And then I'm like, okay, well, other people go through this. So what do other people do to get better or just to kind of get through it, you know?
So do you then investigate that and find something to try, or do you just
sometimes I just sit it out or wait it out, so to speak. There's times where I'm like, I'm going to try something totally new and maybe this is a distraction, I don't know, but to pull myself out of it. So go do something I don't normally do, maybe talk to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time to rearrange my current state and try and make something out of that. But there are times where I'm like, wow, should I reach out to somebody, or does that seem like really desperate? Is it normal to reach out to somebody when you're not having a good day like this and it's drug on substantially? And sometimes these things come to mind and I'm like, am I going nuts? Because it's so out of my nature. And then it passes, and then I was like, well, I made like a mountain out of an anthill. But at the time, I was the ant, and that was a big hill.
That's assuming it's an anthill, right? I mean,
yeah.
because there are big things that go on in life that aren't anthills, right? I mean, we've both talked about these in our lives, right? The mountains, right? There are emotional mountains. What's interesting about what you're talking about is I can relate to what you're saying. There are times now where if something stretches out and I'm in a state for a little while, it can actually take me a little while to realize that I'm actually there. Right? You seem to have an awareness of like, this is stretching on longer than usual for me. It can take me a little while to realize that something has gone on a little more than usual for me. And that's usually, for me, a sign that I've been in my head too long, right? And I'm not paying attention to what I'm feeling. And so I actually have like a whole toolkit of tactics, of methods that I can go to.
That's good.
I do. And I don't always go to them as quickly as in retrospect I would have liked. But the first one I go to is actually naming what's happening. Naming it out loud, besides recognizing, okay, whoa, I'm in my head. And that's naming the emotion. And again, I always go back to the science of this, right? But the science of this shows that naming the emotion that you're feeling or what's happening actually reduces the emotional chemical response in your body by up to 50% the second you start. Which means if you're feeling that flood of cortisol and all those chemicals in the body, you can slow that down just by simply naming it out loud. I am anxious, or I am sad, I am frustrated. And I usually do this by myself, by the way. I don't do this out in public.
You're like out walking.
I'm out walking around, I'm frustrated. Right, well, nice. I just think of my father. I'm frustrated. Hi, I'm Ken. Nice to meet you. Frustrated. My dad used to do that all the time. Okay, anyway. Why my dad is catching strays in this episode all of a sudden, I don't know. But nevertheless, love you, Dad. But nevertheless, that it actually reduces that because this is what's going on in the brain. I don't know if you've studied this. You probably haven't read.
Probably not as extensively as you
okay.
have.
All right. Well, I didn't want to say that, but
it's okay.
Nevertheless,
I'll admit.
the two parts of the brain that actually have to work together on this are the prefrontal cortex, which handles all our intellectual development, and the amygdala, which is our emotional center. And when we are either flooded with that happiness or the sadness, depression, or everything in between, our amygdalas can go into hyperdrive, particularly when things are challenging and our bodies are getting flooded with cortisol and all of the things that come with that. The key is for those two things to communicate. So in emotional states that have us caught, activating the prefrontal cortex can be done as simply as naming the emotion, because then you're using that part of the brain to make sense of what the other part of the brain is telling you is going on, right? And so you wed those two things together, And all of a sudden you have a little more equilibrium in your understanding of what's happening. And that reduces, just by itself, that reduces the chemical response coming from the amygdala responding to your emotions. And so it automatically balances those out. So, I mean, it gave birth to a practice called name it to tame it. Yeah. You name it to tame it. To know what it is to do that. And then another strategy with this is one that you already do, right? And that is something called cognitive reappraisal. When that happens, you go, okay, well, wait a minute. Where is the positive in this? I could choose to look at this really negatively, but I could also choose an element of this to look at more positively, right? That is not denying reality, at least in neuroscience terms. That's actually adding to the reality of something and deciding what that is going to be for you. So this very idea that somehow that people who are super negative all the time, just like say, I'm just being realistic, right? That's very, very limiting thinking. Because then the assumption becomes, okay, if I find a positive here, I'm making something up and I'm flying in the face of reality.
Yes.
And no, the fact is we can make our reality that way because that's the meaning part of happiness, making meaning, right? If we're going to look at it that way and not just assume it's the pleasure part of happiness, the fuzzy part, right? All right. And then the last part of this is when we do those things and we try other tactics, we get out of avoidance and into acceptance. Because the second you admit or name to yourself or to another person that I am sad, I don't know what to do, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, you suddenly are voicing your acceptance of what's actually happening. Because that is reality. Your body is telling you and your brain's telling you, you are unhappy, you are blank. So if you fill that in and admit that, you're accepting reality and you're not avoiding it. Our brains and bodies actually stress out more internally when we avoid something than when we accept it.
I mean, you can feel it.
Yeah.
Actually, because you're trying to, and it's a natural thing. You're trying to put space between you and what's uncomfortable. That's why people procrastinate, right? That's why they avoid difficult conversations and they avoid things within themselves because they don't want to look at it.
Yep.
And funny, you were saying how you speak out loud and you name things.
I
do sometimes the same. I don't name things, but I'll talk through things out loud. I would say, I guess, to myself because there's nobody else around, but it's not like I am conversing with myself, but I'm out loud working through things. And so far it's been great. It's worked. But
work.
You know, there's been some times where I'm like, I'll know like, okay, this is a rough one. Going through some stuff, give yourself a day or two and it's going to pass. And on occasion, I have little thoughts that are like, but will it? Is it going to be gone in a couple days? You're banking on the fact it's going to be gone. What if it's not? And
storytelling.
Yes. And I'm like, first of all, who invited you?
Who invited that guy?
Yeah. Where'd you come from?
Who invited negative Nancy?
Yeah. I'm like, how'd Nancy get here? But, and then
my turn to laugh.
But then I laugh because I'm like, I joke about it and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is funny.
Yeah.
But in that tends to bring a lightness to it. And it just shows to me that of course things are heavy. Things are difficult. Lots of people are going through really difficult things right now. But like you said, there can be goodness and there can be positive things in there and they may not feel like it, but it's still okay to look over and point it out and be like, that's a good thing right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it may have absolutely nothing to do with you. You might just witness something great happening and pointing it out to yourself as if you would point it out to a friend with you, I think still has a good effect.
It does. It has a really good effect. And you're actually tapping in on something that is the primary point here is you're talking about emotional flexibility. And that means that we can hold a series of different emotional states all at the same time, right? And we can see this in when we talk about romantic notions. Like when we go to, people go to a wedding, they're happy and they cry. Right?
Like, that's weird.
But those are two emotional states at the same time. My sister recently with her kids who are now grown and are moving into their careers and are hitting these important milestones. is having emotional responses of both happiness, proud, excited for them, and sadness. That stage of her life of that type of parenting is changing, right? And there's sadness in that. So when we really pause and look at it, we know this. But in our day in, day out stuff, we tend to minimize that for ourselves. We tend to downplay all of that and think that we can't necessarily hold all those things at the same time. And really what we're talking about is holding the discomfort of those competing states. And that's really this. And so if people are wondering where do you start with this, right? Right before we go to break here, first thing I'll say is you start by noticing the things where you tolerated some discomfort, even if it was just on a small thing or for just a short period of time.
What, like eating spicy food?
That's a different kind of discomfort, but nevertheless. So we'll dig into that a little bit more when we come back from our second break here on Staying Power. So come on right back.
Talking about guns with others might not always feel comfortable, but it could save a life. Here's a way to start a conversation. Your family is going over to your neighbor's home for dinner for the first time. How would you ask if there are any unlocked guns in the home?
Hey, we're so excited for tonight. Before we come over, though, may I ask if there are any unlocked guns in your home?
Our guns are stored securely, locked in a safe that the kids can't access.
Awesome.
Learn how to have the conversation at agreetoagree.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diaspora, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diaspora offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diaspora Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Alternative Talk 1150, local talk for the body, mind, and soul.
Welcome back to Staying Power. JD here with Ashley.
Hello.
And we are talking about regulating stuff, aren't we, Ashley? Kind of integrating together the happy and the sad, whether we come across as the happy person all the time, like you have mentioned you tend to, or the person who isn't that way, that's pretty much how I come across sometimes. But nevertheless, but what I love about where we've gone with this is the importance of talking about how in our own lives, and we see it with clients all the time, the more we can expand to hold more of these competing things, right? To integrate these things rather than suppress them, we can actually do better for ourselves in the long run. So really what we're talking about is that kind of regulation and developing that. So in the time we had left, Ashley, I was thinking we could dig more into kind of the things that each of us can keep doing. And we're still exploring this ourselves, right? We've just been talking about this.
Yeah. I mean, the human experience doesn't come with a book. It doesn't come with a user guide.
True. That's very true.
So we're still figuring it out too.
Yeah, we are. And really this is if there are realities in life, we were talking about how do we define reality? Yes, pain happens in life and we tend to focus on that. Right. And a lot of our news focuses on that. A lot of our art, a lot of our daily experiences, we tend to talk about the pain, but positivity does as well. And even if we have to seek it and frame it and find it, that doesn't mean it's less real because it's not as evident. Right. And that's something that to me is really important to stress. Just because we have to look for it a little bit doesn't mean it's any less real than the thing that is so negative and it's obvious right in front of us. Right. I think we have to be aware of that. So we've talked about a few tactics of what we can do to cultivate this, to kind of get the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala talking to one another and have the body kind of settle through this and grow through that. So what are some other things, Ashley, some other tactics we can talk about here?
I would say take a look at your environment and see, really scrutinize it from afar, if that makes sense. And look at what is affecting and influencing you on the daily.
Okay.
Really, because you may have an influence in your life that you didn't realize you had that's not so good, doesn't make you feel great. That could be coming from what you watch on TV and in the news or online. It can be the type of music you listen to. It can be the people you're around. It can be the common stores and places and restaurants and bars or wherever you end up going and the environment that you spend a large amount of time. You consume stuff with your eyes, with your nose, with your mouth, with your ears. we're always taking in things, and it's good to put some sort of filtration on that on occasion to see if you could catch some things in there that maybe aren't serving you very well.
Filtration, I like that because it's sifting out the healthy from the pollutant, essentially. And talk about an uncomfortable act, right, to take a look at. You can see some uncomfortable things.
People will probably give themselves a pass on so many things because you might be doing this so much that you don't even realize that maybe you have like a certain playlist you listen to. And you're like, love that playlist because, it's one of my favorite songs is on there. And I listen to it when I like get ready in the morning or whatnot. And maybe it's like angry music or the type of music that doesn't have really good positive lyrics. And sometimes other music or whatnot actually does good for you. Maybe gets you hyped up for the day and whatnot. But like, I know if we're going to talk about music as an example, I always feel a little bit better when I put on like classic Spanish guitar or like classical music.
Yeah.
And I know that. And I don't listen to that all the time. However, I always know I feel a little bit better when I put that on.
Yeah.
So if I'm not feeling so great, I put it on.
That's great.
I turn off my normal stuff and I put that on.
Mine is Hawaiian slack key guitar. I
Oh,
love that. I grew up listening to that when I was a kid.
Sure.
Yeah, in Hawaii. So
that's cool.
That's always comforting for me. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So environmental looks and taking a look at that. Yeah, and that can lead to some bigger questions, right? Depending on what is the pollutant, right, that you might be around, but nevertheless, I think it's important. And you got me thinking about a few things for mine, which I think is good.
Oh.
Another one is one that has been tried, and therapists talk about this quite a bit, but neuroscientists are talking about a lot more recently. It's called the 90-second experiment. If you notice, the big bursts of emotion that we have only last about 90 seconds. So big moments of happiness and euphoria, right? They peak no more than about 90 seconds out. Ashley, have you ever had like a deep, like soul-bending cry, like where you just cry?
Yes.
Yes. It doesn't last for hours, at least the initial one, right? The initial burst of it is probably about 90 seconds, right? Or no more than 90 seconds. Because our bodies don't need that. Because what's happening in our emotional responses is our body is continually regulating, particularly when it's bursting out in tears or when there's anger or when there's happiness. It has to regulate. So we can't stay in those states forever. Our body doesn't want us to stay there. So it regulates us back. So the 90-second experiment is notice when you have an emotional response to something, how long it lasts. And if it's only going to last at peak for 90 seconds, after 90 seconds, it's going to be more tolerable. Even if it's not fully gone, and even if it's still uncomfortable, the level of discomfort is going to go down, right? Noticing that, and then asking yourself, what does that mean for how I go about, how I frame my emotions, the stories I tell myself? Now, that's only true, though, Ashley, at 90 seconds, if we don't reignite them.
Sure.
With a story of some sort, right? What does this all mean, right? Or that type of thing. And certainly when we're going through stages, serious things like deep grief over the loss of a loved one, a memory is going to kick that off again, right? Or a sense of that loss is going to kick it off again. But it's still that initial emotional break is going to be about 90 seconds. And then it's going to shift, right? So it's not to say you just have to turn it off after 90 seconds, but to know that 90 seconds is really the length of the wave has some value in just knowing it. And so paying attention to that and do that. And I do that a lot as well.
That's a really valuable point to bring up because I think it can give people a little bit of hope of, there is a light on the other side. It's not that far away. There is there's discomfort for sure.
Yeah.
And it's going to get better.
Yeah.
It won't last forever. And another thing that I suggest to people is, be gentle with yourself. Sometimes people are really hard on themselves and they get down on themselves. Like, you should be picking yourself back up. Like, all those stories come in. And I joked earlier saying that the human experience doesn't come with a handbook, but it doesn't. Now, there's a lot of books and resources and things out there nowadays about what you can do and how you can be better. And our podcast is like one of them, right? Yeah. Our show here is to like try and give people a little bit of instruction and help from what we've learned on what they can do. However, understand that the emotions we go through, they're strange. They're weird.
They are.
They come
Thank you for saying that.
and they go at times when you totally know they're going to happen, and other times when you very much don't expect and you're not prepared to handle what comes at you.
Yeah.
And you're going to react in some sort of way before you realize you're reacting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to be gentle with yourself and to let yourself, as long as it's not destructive and really difficult for other people, to just let it ride.
Yeah.
And let those bad days happen. They always say, let the good times roll. Let the bad times roll.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You gotta let them roll and do their thing and ebb and flow like the waves do.
Well, and that's where the lessons come from. That's where the growth comes from. If we don't let those difficult times roll without being rolled over by them, right? It's the difference between riding a whitewater raft on the rapids and trying to swim them. Stay in the raft.
Right. Yeah.
Stay in the raft, right? It's still not going to feel great. You're going to get bumped around. You're going to be scared, but you're not going to be trying to swim through rocks.
Right.
There's a big difference, right? So don't throw yourself in the water either, right? Is that. So, that's really good. And here's the other thing I want to come back to with this. I do think we have a chronic challenge in the world we live in these days, and that everybody thinks that the whole purpose of everything they're supposed to shoot for in life, to define whether they are successful or not, or whether life is worth living or continuing or whatever, is happiness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's helpful.
No.
I don't think it's helpful for that to be the pursuit. Instead, I think wholeness or continued growth, curiosity, exploration, expansion, right? Because there is no such thing as a 100% complete human experience. And I'm looking at the camera for a reason. I'm talking to you, right? Everybody. I'm talking to me too. There is no such thing. The choices we make in life determine where we go, the next steps go. So we're not going to experience everything that every single human being is able to experience. However, we can continue to expand what we know and expand what we try and expand what we learn and try to become more whole, not because we are deficient now and have to reach this goal of our completeness, but almost just continuing to expand on who we already are. That is going to involve bumps.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it is. And so I think that redefining matters because the words we use are so powerful, right? People always say, well, words don't do this. Reality does. Well, words are how we describe reality and how we then shape it.
Yes.
If we assume certain things on the basis of those words.
Isn't there a running monologue of words in your mind all day?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you ever really stop and think about how much you think. And those are little words running through these wheels in your brain all day long.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's what you're telling yourself. But
yeah,
I would say something else for people, and this is a little PSA coming from a joyful, happy person, is it's still good to check in on those people. Now, whether they will share with you or not, it's still good. It's a great idea to check in on those people that seem like they are happy all the time. And not because it's a facade and you think they're being fake, but sometimes those people don't know how to express the discomfort and the bad days. And having somebody ask is like a door cracked open, and it makes it much easier for somebody to talk about it. So just a little, thought out there. It always makes me think of, what is that game? Is it Fallout? Where they're living in those little pods underneath the ground and they're all happy. Yeah. And when I watched the show and I'm like, something is wrong with these people.
Yeah.
And
you can tell
something's
not quite right.
Something was not right.
Because they don't know about the reality above them.
Yes.
Right?
And I'm like, sometimes that's kind of how it feels. And it's like, there's another reality out there and you just don't know how to get there.
Yeah.
Because you're so used to living in your happy pod.
Yeah. Because, in the end, it just reminds me, and we've had conversations about this privately before, that in the end, that's what we connect over. Yeah, we connect over shared happy things. Laughter is a powerful bond, right? You laugh over things, you enjoy happy moments. Those are great memories. But connection can really happen over those types of conversations, that reaching out, the sharing of those things, the receiving of those things, right? Not because you have to fix it for somebody else, but because they're trusting you with that, right? And I know from my experience with you how important that is to you, because I've asked you before, right? And I think we've talked about it on the show before, but there are times where I can just sense that not all is right in Ashley's world. I can just sense, and actually you can sense it with me as well, right? You sensed it this week, as a matter of fact, right?
I know. I sent you a rocket this time.
I know. We talked about that. A rocket ship emoji thing. Like when we're wondering, hey, send me a rocket. Doing okay?
Yeah.
And a little rocket ship emoji shows up. Yeah, you sent me one in this last week. It does matter, right? Because everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be known. Everybody wants to be able to share space with another human being in a way where they feel like they can be themselves. And all the buzzwords that go with that, feeling safe, right? Feeling seen, right? Feeling appreciated. That is all part of what we're looking for. And we can learn how to better cultivate that within ourselves to receive from other people and how to give that out. So I really appreciate you bringing this up not because I already know you well enough to know that, the happy-go-lucky part of you is not 24/7. I know that, right? You don't pretend that either, right? You never do. And yet I can see how people might say to you, oh, well, you're always up all the time. Or the assumption is you don't have difficult times. And that's got to feel isolating sometimes.
Yeah, it really can. Because then when you do have those moments and someone's bearing witness, they're like, is she like breaking in front of me?
Yeah, like what's happening? Rather than it just being part of a normal
rather
part
than
of
like,
things.
oh, okay, she's just having a bad day.
Yeah, right. It's a normal part of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does underscore that universal truth we hear a lot about these days, is that everybody's carrying something, right? And those stories that we can tell ourselves can be really tough. I just to wrap up, we got only a few more minutes here on staying power, but I had an experience with a client in the past week who was having a lot of self-recrimination over, he felt he should be able to handle something better now, right? And he said, and my son comes to me, and if my son was coming to me with some of these concerns, I would have this advice for him. And I would say, A, B, and C, D. And I said, okay, well, what would it be like if you told your earlier version of yourself this, right? You're 15 years into this career. What would you tell that version of you 15 years ago? And and it wasn't so much what he said after that, it was how he shifted.
Oh, interesting.
His whole body language shifted, and he relaxed, and he went, and then when he answered, it was so clearly connective back to this earlier self of his that it kind of started the process of getting him over that story.
Oh, wow.
And really that's just what we innately have the ability to do, right? And he was kind of experiencing that integrating of, again, frontal cortex, amygdala, pulling that together. So, all right.
Very cool.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for bringing this up.
You know what? Thanks for meeting me here.
Yeah. Appreciate it. I appreciated the conversation. And thank you for all of you listening. And remember, if you missed any of this episode or would like to catch up on any episodes of Staying Power, you can do so as a podcast. Find it as a podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Woo, stumbling over things today. You can also watch video on our YouTube channel. I highly recommend that because you can see Ashley laughing at me most of the time. And you can also find out more about us at our radio home, 1150 AM KKNW in Seattle. And in all of those locations, you can find links to our social media, as well as to our email address, stayingpowershow@gmail.com. We hope you reach out to us at any of those platforms. Let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you think. Answer any questions. Bring up topics. We'd be happy to hear from you. We will be back next week with another episode. And as always, I'm just JD.
I'm Ashley.
See you later.
Bye.